The Johnson twins, Maya and Marcus, had always been inseparable. Born just minutes apart, they shared everything: dreams, secrets, laughter, and even the occasional sibling squabble. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, they were raised by their hard-working single father, Derek Johnson. Their mother had passed away when they twins were only toddlers, leaving Derek to juggle his responsibilities as both a parent and a professional. Despite the challenges, he managed to provide them with a stable and loving home. Derek was not your average dad. To Maya and Marcus, he was simply Dad, the guy who made pancakes on Saturday mornings, taught them how to ride bikes, and cheered at every school play or basketball game. But outside of their cozy little world, Derek held a position of immense power and influence. He was the CEO of Skyline Airlines, one of the largest and most prestigious airline companies in the country. However, Derek never flaunted his status. He believed that wealth and success shouldn't define who you are, and he wanted his children to grow up humble, kind, and grounded. Maya and Marcus inherited their father's determination and charisma. Both were bright students, excelling in academics and extracurricular activities. After graduating high school, they decided to take a gap year before starting college. During this time, they worked part-time jobs, Maya at a local bookstore, and Marcus at a gym, to save money for something special: a trip to California. It wasn't just any vacation. It was a chance to visit relatives they hadn't seen in years and explore the golden beaches, towering redwoods, and bustling cities of the West Coast. For months, the twins meticulously planned their journey. They scoured travel websites for deals, created detailed itineraries, and even picked out matching outfits for the flight. The idea of flying across the country filled them with excitement. Neither of them had ever been on a plane before, and the thought of soaring above the clouds seemed almost magical. Finally, after weeks of saving and preparation, they booked their tickets with Skyline Airlines, unaware of the connection between the company and their own family. Derek, true to his nature, hadn't mentioned his role in the business, wanting the experience to feel normal and unburdened by privilege. On the morning of their departure, the house buzzed with energy. Maya double-checked her backpack, ensuring she hadn't forgotten anything important. Her journal, headphones, snacks, and a small photo album containing pictures of their late mother. Marcus, meanwhile, fiddled with his phone, making sure it was fully charged so he could document every moment of their adventure. Derek stood by the door, watching his children with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. Time had flown by so quickly. It felt like just yesterday they were toddlers clinging to his legs. "You two ready?" Derek asked, his deep voice breaking through their flurry of last-minute preparations. "As ready as we'll ever be," Maya replied with a grin, adjusting the strap of her bag. Marcus nodded enthusiastically, though there was a flicker of nervousness in his eyes. Flying was a big deal, especially since neither of them had done it before. Still, the thrill of embarking on such an exciting journey outweighed any apprehension. The drive to JFK Airport was filled with chatter and laughter. Derek regaled them with stories from his own travels, offering tips on navigating airports and dealing with unexpected delays. Though he avoided discussing his work, he couldn't help but emphasize the importance of treating others with respect, whether they were fellow passengers or airport staff. "Remember," he said as they pulled into the terminal, "kindness goes a long way." After saying goodbye to their father, Maya and Marcus stepped into the bustling airport, their hearts racing with anticipation. The sheer size of JFK was overwhelming, with its endless corridors, crowded gates, and the constant hum of announcements echoing overhead. Yet amidst the chaos, the twins felt a sense of wonder. Everywhere they looked, people from all walks of life hurried past, each carrying their own stories and destinations. They followed the signs to their designated gate, weaving through throngs of travelers. As they approached the check-in counter, Maya clutched their boarding passes tightly, her fingers trembling slightly. Checking in turned out to be smoother than expected, and soon they were making their way through security. The process was tedious but fascinating, as they watched bags glide along conveyor belts and listened to the rhythmic beeping of metal detectors. Once they reached the gate area, the twins settled into their seats, eagerly awaiting the boarding call. Around them, families reunited, friends laughed, and solo travelers scrolled through their phones. Maya pulled out her journal, jotting down notes about the sights and sounds around her. Marcus snapped a few photos capturing candid moments of strangers immersed in their own worlds. Despite the long wait, the twins remained upbeat, chatting animatedly about what lay ahead. They imagined strolling along Santa Monica Pier, hiking in Yosemite National Park, and visiting Hollywood landmarks. Each possibility sparked new waves of excitement, reinforcing the belief that this trip would be unforgettable, not just because of the places they'd see, but because they'd experience it all together. Little did they know, however, that their journey was about to take a dramatic turn, one that would test their resilience, reveal hidden truths, and ultimately change their lives forever. For now, though, they sat side by side, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon, their dreams carried aloft by the promise of adventure. As the boarding process began, Maya and Marcus joined the line with eager anticipation. The gate area gradually emptied as passengers shuffled forward, clutching their carry-ons and glancing at their boarding passes. The twins exchanged excited smiles, imagining what it would feel like to finally step onto the plane. But their excitement quickly turned to confusion when they reached the front of the line. The gate agent, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard in hand, glanced up at them briefly before looking back down at her screen. She scanned their boarding passes, frowned, and then looked at them again, this time more intently. Her expression shifted from neutral to something harder to read, something that made Maya's stomach churn. "I'm sorry," the agent said, her tone clipped and dismissive. "It seems there's been an issue with your reservation." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, his voice steady but tinged with concern. He leaned closer to the counter, trying to catch a glimpse of the screen. "We have our tickets right here. Everything was confirmed when we checked in." The agent didn't meet his gaze. Instead, she tapped on her keyboard, pretending to search for answers. "According to our system, your seats were reassigned due to overbooking. There's nothing I can do about it." Maya felt a knot tighten in her chest. Overbooking? That didn't make sense. They had purchased their tickets months ago and received multiple confirmation emails. How could their seats suddenly disappear? "But other people are still boarding," Maya pointed out, gesturing toward the dwindling line behind them. "Why are they allowed on the plane if it's overbooked?" The agent shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "That's just how it works sometimes. You'll need to speak with customer service if you want to resolve this." Her words hung in the air, sharp and dismissive. The twins stood frozen, unsure of what to say or do next. Around them, passengers continued to file past, some casting curious glances in their direction. A few whispered among themselves, though their hushed tones only added to the tension. Marcus stepped forward, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "Look, we followed all the rules. We showed up on time, went through security, and did everything we were supposed to. This doesn't seem fair." The agent sighed loudly, as if annoyed by his persistence. "Sir, I've already explained the situation. If you'd like to file a complaint, you can do so later. For now, I suggest finding another flight." Maya tugged gently on Marcus's sleeve, urging him to stay calm. She knew losing their temper wouldn't help, but the injustice of it all was unbearable. They weren't asking for special treatment. They simply wanted what they had paid for, a seat on the plane. As the moments dragged on, the twins couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The agent's body language spoke volumes. Her refusal to look them in the eye, the way she kept glancing nervously at her colleagues, the subtle shift in her tone whenever she addressed them. It wasn't hard to piece together what was happening. They were being singled out because of the color of their skin. Maya's hands trembled as she clutched her boarding pass. She thought about all the times she and Marcus had faced similar situations. Store clerks following them around, teachers underestimating their abilities, strangers crossing the street to avoid walking near them. These microaggressions had become a part of their daily lives, but this was different. This wasn't just a rude comment or a suspicious glance, it was outright discrimination, and it hurt more than either of them cared to admit. "We're not leaving until someone gives us a real explanation," Marcus said firmly, his voice rising slightly. By now a small crowd had gathered, curious about the commotion. Some passengers sympathized with the twins, nodding in agreement or offering words of encouragement. Others rolled their eyes, clearly annoyed by the delay. The gate agent pressed, her lips into a thin line, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. She signaled to a nearby supervisor who approached cautiously. The man introduced himself as the lead agent and assured the twins he would look into the matter. But his promises rang hollow. His demeanor mirrored the first agent's, polite but distant, evasive yet condescending. While the adults exchanged heated words, Maya's mind raced. She thought about their father, Derek, and how he always emphasized the importance of standing up for yourself. "Don't let anyone treat you like you don't belong," he often told them. Those words echoed in her head now, giving her strength even as doubt crept in. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lead agent returned, with a solution, or rather a half-hearted attempt at one. "We can offer you vouchers for a future flight," he said, placing 2 slips of paper on the counter, "and perhaps a meal voucher while you wait for the next available departure." Marcus scoffed, shaking his head. "That's not good enough. We've planned this trip for months. We deserve better than this." The agent raised his hands defensively. "I'm sorry, but that's the best we can do. Policies are policies." Frustration boiled over, and Marcus pulled out his phone. "Fine. If you won't help us, maybe someone else will." He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. Before dialing, he turned to Maya. "Should we call Dad?" Maya hesitated. Calling their father meant admitting defeat, but it also meant seeking justice. After a brief pause, she nodded. "Yeah, let's do it." Marcus took a deep breath and pressed the call button. As the phone rang, he glanced at the agents who were now whispering urgently among themselves. Whatever was about to happen, the twins knew one thing for certain. They weren't backing down without a fight. On the other end of the line, Derek answered, his voice calm but concerned. "Hey kids, everything okay?" "Dad, we've got a problem," Marcus began, explaining the situation as calmly as he could. He described the gate agent's behavior, the vague excuses, and the growing suspicion that they were being profiled. Each word carried weight, and by the time he finished, silence filled the line. For a moment, Derek said nothing. When he finally spoke, his tone was measured but firm. "Stay where you are. Don't move. I'll take care of this." As the call ended, Maya and Marcus exchanged glances. Relief washed over them, but it was mixed with apprehension. They had no idea what their father planned to do, but they trusted him completely. What they didn't realize was that Derek's response would go far beyond fixing a simple travel mishap. It would set off a chain reaction that would ripple through the entire airline industry. Meanwhile, the scene at the gate grew increasingly tense. Passengers murmured amongst themselves, some snapping photos or recording videos. Word spread quickly, fueled by social media posts from eyewitnesses. Hashtags like Swarm Skyline Scandal began trending online, drawing national attention to the unfolding drama. Little did anyone know, the twins' ordeal was about to become much bigger than a denied boarding. It was about to expose deep-seated issues within one of the country's largest airlines. As Marcus hung up the phone, he glanced at Maya, who was visibly trying to hold herself together. Her jaw was clenched, and her knuckles were white as she gripped the strap of her backpack. Despite the chaos swirling around them, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes, hope that their father would somehow make things right. But neither of them could have predicted just how far-reaching his actions would be. On the other end of the line, Derek Johnson listened intently to his son's account of what had happened. His initial reaction was one of disbelief. How could this happen under his own roof, or rather, within his own company? As the CEO of Skyline Airlines, he prided himself on fostering a culture of inclusivity and respect. Yet here were his own children, standing at an airport gate, being treated like they didn't belong because of the color of their skin. It felt personal, not just as a father, but as a leader who believed deeply in fairness and equality. Derek didn't raise his voice or lose his temper. Instead, he moved with precision. He instructed his assistant to connect him immediately with the airport manager overseeing operations at JFK. While waiting for the call to go through, he jotted down notes on a legal pad, outlining exactly what needed to happen next. This wasn't just about fixing a problem for Maya and Marcus. It was about sending a message to his employees, to the public, and, most importantly, to himself, that discrimination would not be tolerated. When the airport manager finally came on the line, Derek cut straight to the point. "I need you to explain why 2 passengers, one of whom happens to be my child, are being denied boarding without cause," he said, his tone calm but firm. The manager stammered, clearly caught off guard by the directness of the inquiry. Derek interrupted before the man could finish his explanation. "Don't bother with excuses. I want a full report on my desk within the hour, along with a list of everyone involved in this incident." The manager scrambled to respond, promising immediate action. Meanwhile, Derek turned his attention back to the situation at the gate. Through a live feed monitored by Skyline's operations team, he watched as the crowd around Maya and Marcus grew larger, fueled by social media posts and growing outrage. Passengers recorded videos of the twins attempting to reason with the gate agents, while others chimed in with supportive comments or demands for accountability. Derek knew the story was spreading fast and he couldn't afford to wait. In a bold move that shocked even his closest advisors, Derek issued an order to delay all outgoing Skyline flights until further notice. The decision sent shockwaves throughout the terminal. Dozens of passengers waiting to board their respective flights erupted into murmurs of confusion and frustration. Some vented their anger on social media, posting updates about the sudden holdup. Others speculated wildly about the reason behind the delays. What no one realized, at least not yet, was that the entire operation had ground to a halt because of 2 young travelers standing up for themselves. Back at the gate, the atmosphere shifted dramatically once word of the flight delays reached the agents. The lead agent returned to the counter, visibly flustered. "Mr. and Miss Johnson," he began, his voice trembling, "we've found a solution. We can offer you first-class upgrades on the next available flight, along with complimentary hotel accommodations for the night." Maya crossed her arms, unimpressed. "That's not enough," she said firmly. "This isn't just about us missing our flight. It's about how we were treated. And offering us perks doesn't fix that." Marcus nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and besides, why should we accept your solution when none of this should have happened in the first place?" The agent looked desperate, glancing over his shoulder as if seeking guidance from someone else. But it was clear that the situation was spiraling out of control. News outlets began picking up the story, broadcasting live updates from inside the terminal. Reporters interviewed passengers, many of whom expressed sympathy for the twins. Social media exploded with hashtags like "Darn Justice for the Twins" and "Darn Skyline Accountability," amplifying the pressure on the airline to act decisively. Derek, meanwhile, remained focused. He called an emergency meeting with his executive team, demanding answers and solutions. "We're going to get to the bottom of this," he told them. "But more importantly, we're going to use this moment to show the world that Skyline stands for something better than this." By late afternoon, the airport buzzed with activity. Corporate representatives arrived en masse, descending upon the terminal like a swarm of bees. They brought apologies, offers of compensation, and promises of reform. But Derek wasn't satisfied with empty gestures. He personally traveled to JFK to meet with Maya and Marcus face to face. When he arrived, the twins were sitting on a bench near the gate, surrounded by curious onlookers and reporters. Seeing their father approach, they stood, up, relief washing over their faces. Derek hugged them tightly, holding back tears as he whispered, "I'm so sorry this happened to you." Once the emotional reunion subsided, Derek addressed the gathered crowd. Standing tall and composed, he spoke directly to the passengers, affected by the delays. "Ladies and gentlemen, I owe each and every one of you an apology. Today my company failed. Not just these 2 young individuals, but all of you. We pride ourselves on providing safe, reliable, and respectful service. And clearly, we fell short." He went on to outline a series of measures he planned to implement. Immediately, mandatory diversity training for all employees, stricter enforcement of anti-discrimination policies, and the creation of an independent oversight committee to review complaints. "Change starts today," he declared, "and I promise you it will continue." The announcement drew applause from some passengers, though others remained skeptical. For Maya and Marcus, however, the moment was bittersweet. On one hand, they were proud of their father for taking such a strong stand. On the other, they couldn't ignore the pain and humiliation they had endured earlier that day. Still, they recognized that their ordeal had sparked something bigger, a conversation about systemic racism and accountability that extended far beyond the walls of an airport terminal. As the evening wore on, the twins finally boarded a flight to Los Angeles, accompanied by their father. The plane was eerily quiet, as if everyone on board understood the weight of what had transpired. Maya stared out the window, watching the city lights fade into darkness below. Marcus leaned back in his seat, scrolling through the endless stream of social media posts about their story. Though exhausted, neither of them could sleep. Their minds raced with questions about what lay ahead, not just for them but for Skyline Airlines and the countless people who might benefit from the changes their father promised to make. One thing was certain: their journey was far from over. What started as a simple trip to California had transformed into a catalyst for change, proving that even in moments of adversity, resilience and courage could pave the way for progress. The days following the incident at JFK Airport unfolded like a whirlwind for Maya and Marcus. Their story dominated headlines across the country, sparking heated debates about racial profiling, corporate accountability, and the power of individual voices to drive change. Social media platforms buzzed with discussions as users shared their own experiences of discrimination in various industries. The hashtag Justice for the Twins trended for 3 consecutive days, while news outlets ran feature stories highlighting the courage and resilience of the young travelers. For Derek Johnson, the aftermath was both humbling and transformative. As the CEO of Skyline Airlines, he had always believed in leading by example, but this situation forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about his company and himself. Despite his efforts to promote inclusivity, it became painfully clear that systemic issues still lingered within the organization. The fact that his own children had been subjected to such blatant prejudice under his watch weighed heavily on him. It wasn't just a failure of policy, it was a failure of leadership. Determined to turn this moment into an opportunity for growth, Derek launched a comprehensive review of Skyline's practices. He assembled a task force comprising diversity experts, civil rights advocates, and employees from all levels of the company. Together, they conducted town hall meetings, focus groups, and anonymous surveys to gather honest feedback about the workplace culture. What emerged was a sobering picture. While many staff members were committed to providing excellent service, others harbored biases, conscious or unconscious, that influenced their interactions with passengers. Armed with these insights, Derek implemented sweeping reforms designed to address the root causes of discrimination. First, he mandated diversity and inclusion training for every employee, from gate agents to senior executives. These sessions weren't just about checking boxes. They were immersive workshops designed to foster empathy, challenge stereotypes, and encourage open dialogue. Participants were encouraged to share their personal stories and reflect on how bias could manifest in subtle, yet harmful ways. Second, Derek introduced stricter protocols for handling customer complaints related to discrimination. A dedicated hotline was established, allowing passengers to report incidents anonymously. Each complaint would be investigated thoroughly by an independent oversight committee, which included external auditors to ensure transparency. Employees found guilty of discriminatory behavior faced immediate disciplinary action, including termination in severe cases. Third, Derek made it a priority to diversify Skyline's workforce. He set ambitious hiring goals aimed at increasing representation among minority groups, particularly in leadership roles. Internship programs were expanded to provide opportunities for young people from underserved communities, and partnerships were forged with organizations focused on promoting equity in aviation. While these changes were underway, Maya and Marcus found themselves thrust into the spotlight. At first, they struggled to adjust to their newfound fame. Strangers approached them in public, offering words of support or asking for selfies. Journalists bombarded them with interview requests, eager to hear their side of the story. Some days, it felt overwhelming, as if their lives had been turned upside down overnight. But over time, the twins began to embrace their role as advocates for change. Inspired by their father's actions, they decided to use their platform to amplify marginalized voices and push for broader societal reforms. They started by speaking at conferences and panel discussions, sharing their experience and calling attention to the pervasive issue of racial profiling. Their speeches resonated deeply with audiences, blending raw honesty with a hopeful vision for the future. Maya and Marcus also collaborated with advocacy groups working to combat discrimination. In travel and beyond, they joined campaigns aimed at educating the public about implicit bias and encouraging businesses to adopt more inclusive policies. One project they championed involved creating a passenger bill of rights, outlining clear guidelines for respectful treatment and fair compensation in cases of misconduct. The initiative gained traction quickly, earning endorsements from major airlines and consumer protection organizations. Through it all, the twins remained grounded, leaning on each other and their father for support. Derek, though busy managing the fallout from the scandal, made sure to spend quality time with his children. Family dinners became sacred rituals, where they discussed everything from work challenges to personal dreams. These conversations deepened their bond and reinforced the values Derek had instilled in them from a young age: integrity, perseverance, and compassion. As weeks turned into months, the impact of Derek's reforms became evident. Employee morale improved significantly, as workers reported feeling more empowered to speak out against discriminatory behavior. Passengers praised Skyline for its renewed commitment to inclusivity, citing positive interactions with staff and swift resolutions to complaints. Industry analysts hailed the airline as a model for corporate responsibility, urging other companies to follow suit. For Maya and Marcus, the journey of self-discovery continued long after the initial shock of the incident faded. They realized that their experience had not only exposed flaws in the system, but also strengthened their resolve to fight for justice. Both decided to pursue careers aligned with their newfound mission. Maya enrolled in journalism school, determined to shed light on underreported stories and give a voice to those who often went unheard. Marcus, meanwhile, chose to study law, focusing on civil rights litigation and advocacy. Their decision didn't come without challenges. Balancing academic pursuits with their growing public profiles required discipline and sacrifice. There were moments of doubt, times when the weight of expectation felt suffocating. But through it all, they drew strength from each other and the knowledge that their efforts mattered, not just for themselves, but for countless others facing similar struggles. One evening, as the twins sat together in their shared apartment, Maya looked up from her laptop and smiled. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "this whole thing has been crazy, but I think it's made us stronger." Marcus nodded, setting aside his textbook. "Yeah, and it's given us a purpose. We can actually make a difference." They sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on how far they'd come since that fateful day at the airport. Though the scars of discrimination still lingered, they had transformed pain into power, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And as they gazed out the window at the city lights below, they knew their work was far from finished. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but they faced it with unwavering determination and hope. Little did they know, their story was already inspiring others to take action in their own communities. From classrooms to boardrooms, conversations sparked by the twins' ordeal were paving the way for meaningful change. What began as a single act of defiance had grown into a movement, one that reminded everyone of the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the odds. Months after the incident at JFK Airport, Skyline Airlines had undergone a remarkable transformation. What started as a personal ordeal for Maya and Marcus Johnson evolved into a nationwide movement, pushing the airline and the entire aviation industry to confront deep-rooted issues of bias and inequality. The twins' story became a symbol of resilience, justice, and the power of speaking out against injustice. For Derek Johnson, it was a turning point that redefined not only his leadership, but also his legacy. Skyline Airlines emerged from the scandal stronger than ever, earning praise from advocacy groups, customers, and even competitors. The reforms Derek implemented resonated far beyond the company's operations. Other airlines began adopting similar measures, recognizing the importance of addressing discrimination head-on. Industry conferences featured panels discussing diversity in aviation, with Maya and Marcus often invited to share their insights. Their presence reminded everyone that real change begins when those in positions of power listen to the voices of those most affected by systemic inequities. For Maya and Marcus, life had taken on new dimensions. They were no longer just college students planning their next adventure. They were activists, storytellers, and changemakers. Maya excelled in journalism school, where her articles about racial profiling and social justice gained widespread attention. Her pieces were raw, honest, and deeply researched, shedding light on stories that might otherwise have gone untold. Editors praised her ability to connect with readers, making complex issues accessible and relatable. One of her investigative reports on discriminatory practices in the hospitality industry led to policy changes at several major hotel chains. Marcus, too, found his calling in law school. His passion for civil rights litigation burned brighter with each passing semester. He interned at prestigious firms, specializing in discrimination cases, learning how to navigate the intricacies of the legal system while advocating for marginalized communities. In his spare time, he volunteered with organizations providing free legal aid to victims of racial profiling. His dream was to one day argue a landmark case before the Supreme Court, a case that would set a precedent for accountability and fairness in public spaces. Despite their busy schedules, the twins remained close, leaning on each other during challenging times. Their bond grew even stronger as they navigated the complexities of their newfound roles. Late-night phone calls became a ritual, where they shared updates on their respective journeys, offered advice, or simply vented about the pressures of being in the spotlight. Their father, Derek, often joined these conversations, offering wisdom gleaned from decades of leadership experience. These moments reinforced the values they held dear: family, integrity, and perseverance. One summer, Maya and Marcus decided to revisit California, not as tourists this time, but as speakers at a national conference on diversity and inclusion. The event brought together leaders from various industries, all united by a shared commitment to creating equitable environments. As they stood side by side on stage, sharing their story with an audience of thousands, the twins reflected on how far they'd come since that fateful day at the airport. Maya spoke first, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "When we were denied boarding because of the color of our skin, it felt like the world had failed us," she began. "But what we didn't realize then was that failure could lead to something beautiful: change. Our dad taught us that adversity isn't the end of the road. It's an opportunity to build a better path." Marcus took over, his tone resolute. "We're not here today because we want sympathy or recognition. We're here because we believe in the power of action. Every policy change, every conversation, every moment of courage matters. Together we can create a world where no one is judged based on stereotypes or biases." The audience erupted in applause, many rising to their feet in admiration. After the session, attendees lined up to thank the twins for their courage and insight. Some shared their own experiences of discrimination, while others expressed gratitude for the hope their story inspired. It was a reminder that their journey had touched lives far beyond what they could have imagined. Back home, Derek continued to lead Skyline Airlines with renewed purpose. Under his guidance, the company became a beacon of progress, setting benchmarks for diversity and inclusion in the corporate world. Employee satisfaction soared, customer loyalty strengthened, and profits rebounded as travelers chose Skyline for its reputation as a fair and ethical airline. Derek's decision to delay flights during the incident, the bold move that shocked the industry, was hailed as a masterclass in accountability. It proved that doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, pays dividends in trust and integrity. The twins' relationship with their father deepened through the process. They came to understand the immense pressure he faced as a CEO and the sacrifices he made to provide them with a stable upbringing. In turn, Derek gained a deeper appreciation for the challenges his children encountered daily as young Black adults navigating a world rife with prejudice. Their shared experiences fostered mutual respect and empathy, strengthening the foundation of their family. Years later, Maya and Marcus returned to JFK Airport, not as passengers embroiled in controversy, but as honored guests invited to speak, at a ceremony celebrating Skyline's achievements in diversity and inclusion. Walking through the terminal, they couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. Employees greeted them warmly, expressing admiration for their courage and contributions. Passengers stopped to shake their hands or snap photos, eager to capture a moment with the siblings who had sparked a revolution. As they boarded a Skyline flight bound for Los Angeles, memories of that chaotic day flooded back. But this time, the experience was vastly different. Every interaction was infused with kindness and professionalism, a testament to the cultural shift within the company. As the plane soared into the sky, Marcus turned to Maya with a grin. "Remember the last time we flew? Feels like a lifetime ago." Maya chuckled, gazing out the window at the endless expanse of clouds. "Yeah, but look how far we've come. Not just us, but everyone. This whole journey. It's proof that change is possible if you're willing to fight for it." The twins leaned back in their seats, letting the hum of the engines lull them into reflection. Their story wasn't just about overcoming adversity. It was about using pain as fuel for progress. They had transformed a moment of humiliation into a catalyst for transformation, proving that even in the darkest times, light can emerge. And as the plane carried them toward another horizon, they knew their work was far from done. The fight for equality was ongoing, but they were ready, armed with resilience, hope, and the unshakable belief that together anything was possible.